Oh yes, DC, the punching bag of every loser online that decides that suddenly they know shit about comics.
Yeah.
Oh, let's just go rag on DC. Exact quote.
God.
Every loser that does it. Anyway, we all know that the DCEU has had a hard time, to say the least, with some audiences. We're not part of that majority because we liked the DCEU offerings. At least I did up until Aquaman, which I don't hate, but I certainly did not like. I was just like, that's a movie. You were more lenient towards it, but you know that happens.
Well,
you were lenient towards TMNT after all, but
shit.
But no, I don't think it's that bad. But the point is, so far so good as far as we're concerned. But that's not what everybody else thinks. So a lot of fucking focus was being placed on Aquaman when it came out because there was a big shift in tone, and more so on Shazam afterwards because Aquaman was a pretty big monetary success.
Yeah.
So the question was, could they keep up that? Could they keep that ball rolling? Basically, I was like, please don't keep that ball rolling because that ball sucked.
Aiden.
Like if you had a cool ball, like I don't know, basketball's pretty cool, I guess.
Bowling ball.
Yeah, it's like all right, like Aquaman's like a, I don't know, like a softball. You're like, I don't want this. This sucks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. Throw it underhand. It licks. So the question was, were we gonna get a softball or were we gonna get a cool ball like a basketball? This ball thing is not working.
Good. Yeah.
So anyway, Shazam came out, and it's about to come out on physical media, I think.
Digital
right?
first, I believe.
Digital or physical. I don't know what the fuck. The point is, we saw it. Didn't see it theatrically, but we did see it illegally, for lack of better words.
It was super legit.
Yeah, it was on the up and up. But I was, trepidatious, man. You know what I'm saying? Aquaman did not tickle my pickle at all. So that this one was very obviously inclined towards comedic was potentially problematic in my eyes because Aquaman had a lot of comedy and this wasn't hitting for me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Shazam, or more adequately, Captain Marvel, which is really what he is, but it will never be called again in the movies.
The OG Captain Marvel?
The OG Captain Marvel, Shazam, is a comic that nobody really gives a fuck about. Let's be honest, all right? The character is regarded as historically important, I think, by most people in the know of comics. But do they really care? Not really.
No.
Not really. I was huge into comics back in the day, and I didn't really care. You know what I'm saying? The only time I ever read Captain Marvel comics or Shazam, I'm just gonna call them Shazam. Shazam comics on purpose was in like the late '90s. Only that time. Whatever the title was, I think it was called The Power of Shazam at that time.
Did he have a mullet?
No, he did not have a mullet. Thankfully. And what attracted to me then was they had these awesome painted covers at the time. And that's it. That's the only time I did it on purpose. Every other time I read them was by accident. Like, Shazam's in this shit? But, there's an exception. Kingdom Come, but it wasn't a Shazam comic. He was just a big part of it.
Yeah.
So Shazam's just a guy. You know what I'm saying? It's a guy that nobody really gave two squirts of piss about.
He's a hero from like a freaking bygone era. Basically.
Yeah. On top of that, he's not even a DC original. He belonged to Fawcett Comics, and there's a whole slew of legalese where he just ended up in DC's hands, and they've integrated him in there. So my knowledge of Shazam was very limited. So that's a benefit to the movie. They can basically do whatever the fuck they want, and people are not going to give it. The general audience is not going to know the difference or care.
It's not going to be like Shazam doesn't kill.
Yeah, or whatever.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
They have liberty to do things, so that's good. Now, I'm not an anal comic fan, as you aren't either. We like anal, but we're not anal comic fans. So if they did change or stayed loyal, it doesn't matter as long as it's a good product.
Wow.
So, but you know how the masses are.
Yeah.
So the question was, did this fucking thing deliver in any respect? It really had no chance of failure, since it really didn't have to impress anyone. Again, nobody gave a squirt of piss about fucking Shazam. So let's talk about this flick, man. The comedy was ramped up to 1,000 in this one. This is the comedy outing, I guess, of the DCEU. You know what I'm saying? It's comedy central, or the comedy is very intentional.
Better in Comedy Central.
Versus something like Aquaman, where it was just kind of shoehorned in there
Comedyville.
awkwardly. So, how did that fly for me? Given my reaction to Aquaman, it's an inadequate place. You know what I'm saying?
It's a Shazam comic.
Yeah,
or movie.
Here's the thing: from my experience with Shazam comics, again limited. When I read them, they were very self-aware of how cheeseball and aw shucks the character was. So they just kind of rode with that. They fully embraced that air. So this movie does that. So the comedy comes off naturally versus shoehorn forced or whatever. So that aspect was safe for me, man. I really enjoyed how the comedy was handled here, which was, again, probably my first concern.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the comedy?
I would agree. I did find it weird that it wasn't, good, that it wasn't like stupid comedy, like for the most part it was funny.
Right.
That's it. You weren't like, there was no groaners for me.
Yeah, which is a big problem with some movies. I won't mention which ones, but they're mainly in the MCU universe. And that's not a fucking jab at the MCU. We love that stuff too.
Yeah.
But man, some of the fucking comedy sucks at balls.
Yeah.
Incredible Hulk. I mean, I'm sorry, not the movie Incredible Hulk, but the Hulk in fucking Thor Ragnarok. Shit. Literal bathroom humor.
Yeah.
The comedy in Black Panther, some of the worst.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just terrible. Sometimes the comedy there. This was definitely handled here in Shazam, and it had a lot. It related a lot to what was going on, so it didn't just feel out of place.
Yeah, it didn't feel like jokes or references. Like, what are those in freaking Black Panther? It was just like things are happening and it's funny.
So the thing here is, I say it goes hand in hand with the material, and the material lends to the chances, the opportunities for comedy to open up. So probably not aware, if you haven't seen the movie, you're probably not aware with who the fuck or what the fuck Shazam is, and it's basically just a kid that's thrown into the spotlight of being a hero, given this power of ass kickery, and he's plucked from obscurity. So he's the last ditch effort to become this champion.
From our boy gives him his power.
Yeah, fucking Jamon Hanzu's wizard ass gives him the power to become Shazam and be the last ditch defense against the evils of the seven sins, which are here like embodied creatures. And that's it, So it's kind of like a power fantasy, but through the eyes of a kid, So that's like a double whammy of fresh, fruitful territory to just explore a lot of stuff. You got basically what amounts to a family friendly kid story, and then on top of that a power fantasy, which all superhero movies are to some respect. So you got like a rich fucking soil to really dig into and bring out all these potential scenarios and stuff. And the movie, for the most part, takes advantage of that. There's a lot of stuff in there that just really indulges in that idea of someone being a superhero, or the pitfalls or the humorous things that might arise because of that. So I mean, that opportunity was snatched up and very well delivered, I think.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it's just kind of like a different origin story. Like you don't have the moody dude who's has the whole world on his shoulder, which by the Man of Steel's great. But at least it's a different thing, It didn't try to do the same thing. It was just fresh and new.
Yeah.
And then you could see doing all that shit if you were a little kid, in a Zachary Levi body.
Yeah. And that's another thing. The movie really does more than it teased, I guess, that it was gonna do. It could have just been this shallow movie. But it manages to tackle a lot of things at once, a lot of ideas, concepts, etc. at once. So yeah, we have a superhero movie, we got a comedy, it's a family movie on top of that, it's a Christmas movie, which is more than we could say for what Iron Man 3 attempted. It's an action movie. It's got all this stuff, but going back to it being a family movie, this is like a family friendly superhero movie that, again, like you kind of alluded to earlier with the jokes, doesn't elicit any groans or like eye rolls, which a lot of family movies can do.
Yeah.
If you're not a kid, you be like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that sucks.
Yeah, usually like kids, you instantly want to punch in movies. At least I do. But the kids were actually really likable in this. The little black girl is cute.
Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of like you care about them. So that's good.
Yeah, as a family movie, yes, it literally centers around a family, and it's a bunch of kids, a bunch of orphans taken up. What are they called? Foster kids.
Yeah.
Taken up in foster care, and the themes of the movie all center on family.
Your real family.
Yeah, and there's actual lessons in the movie.
Yeah.
That being seen by kids, it could take something out of it versus, oh, cool, look at those guys punch each other. While there is that, there's legitimate fucking lessons here for a kid to learn. So it's a wholesome affair, which really, again, goes back to, those comics that I read, that they were kind of wholesome. They were kind of, bread and butter type of things. And I think, generally speaking, that's kind of the image that Shazam has had for a lot of comic readers. Whether they've read anything or not, that's kind of like the aw shucks wholesome thumbs up thing, which, by the way, they kind of play up a lot when he is in character. So yeah, man, I really, really enjoyed the thematics here. There was a lot to be said about the idea of appreciating what you have, the importance of family, the importance of not being selfish and pushing away those that you should be grateful for, all that stuff. And again, the villain here, though, I know some critics were like, the villain was barely there, etc. Yeah, but it was thematically tied into the family theme, so it all fit in. And, there was a tongue-in-cheek approach to it as well. There was some genuinely touching moments in it. So the whole arcing family theme, it really, really, really gave a heart to the whole affair. I was surprised by that, man. I didn't expect that to work.
Yeah.
So, well, shocker there.
I think I like how, I don't know if we're taking the pros and cons approach here, but I'm just going to throw this one out as a pro. I like how restrained the movie was.
Mm-hmm.
It held back from just having shit blowing up every second. Which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It just wouldn't have made sense in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of the movies just kind of two kids, well, really Zachary Levi, but two kids hanging out together, and that was cool. It was cool. It was a different take.
Yeah.
You do get the actiony scenes, but even those are kind of held back and not super ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool to see nowadays. And I do think that it wouldn't have fit if it was just like everything exploding every second.
Yeah, well, it's important for a movie like this. It's introducing a character to know when to let the action take a back seat. And this one knows. It knows that the action's not important. It needs to tell this story first. It needs to make you like these characters. It needs to develop the ideas behind the character, which a lot of people aren't familiar with, of course. So it knows, man. It knows how to do that. It was something that I can't say Aquaman knew how to do. Just assume you were going to like this guy, which, granted, there was precedent to like the guy. He was a very likable presence in Justice League. That's fine, except that, it didn't know when to fucking shut up and build a story.
Yeah.
It was too busy. It was too upfront. It didn't give you reason to give a shit. This one gives you more than ample reason to give a shit about the character. So even if the action does underwhelm at times compared to, say, like a fucking, slobber knocker fucking fight fest,
no,
that's not the issue, because what's important is the story. So yes, a wise approach to introducing a hero. Some people I know bemoaned the fact that Black Adam wasn't in this movie, which is Shazam's most notorious villain. To those people, I say, clearly you haven't read Shazam comics, because nobody has.
Yeah.
But chill out, man. It's not the time to tell that story yet.
It's obviously building something. So
yeah.
why?
You can't. Yeah, you can't
It's
be
just
pushing
blowing your
shit up
load,
front,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So
People shat on freaking BBS for blowing its load so quickly, and yet they wanted Black Adam in this. It's
yeah,
like, come on,
there's
man.
no reason to fucking push that to the forefront. In fact, it set up the ground for it
Yeah.
quite well, and so now we can actually have that without it feeling rushed. So yeah, man, pretty good. Yeah, like you said, a lot of restraint was shown in the wisest of ways. Dug that quite a bit. Now, if I did have to point out something negative at this point, there are some moments that are like feel like a little like they didn't brush over certain ideas very well. They didn't fine tooth comb certain concepts, like when he's barely discovering his powers. You know, and mind you, this is nitpicky. I'm not saying this is a criticism. I'm just saying people might notice this if you know if they're looking at the movie critically with a critical eye. Um, you know, like there's some bully characters, you know, that prize their fucking vehicle, and at this point in the movie, Shazam hasn't developed his powers to the point of flight. He hasn't quite mastered flight yet. Yet somehow he slams her car down from God knows where.
Yeah.
You know, so little things like that pop up, but they never impede your enjoyment of the movie, I think. If you're being careful to look out for special effects, some of the effects, for the most part, are pretty damn good. Yeah. But the flight effects in this are pretty bad.
It was kind of weird because I think they went too much with like full CG bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So it just looked a little off, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was you could totally tell when it was someone actually in like a harness or whatever, and someone that was just fully CG. It was weird. It was weird because so many of the effects were really, really good. Like, surprisingly good.
It's really, when we're talking bad effects or not suitable effects to the fare that we're watching, it really comes down to just the flight stuff. You know, like you say, it's very discernible to tell when it's a CG body. Not like Black Panther, thankfully, where it's like, God, man, that's fake. No, not that level.
Yeah,
bad.
it's just kind of.
It's just like
unnatural.
Yeah, exactly, unnatural. And when they're doing wire work, which, by the way, not great wire work at all. And then there's a lot of use of green screen that's very blatantly obvious. Given what the DCU had offered us in terms of flight before, that was like a major step down visually speaking. Because even if you hate the fuck out of the DCU offerings before this, you can't knock the flight. This is probably the best the flight has looked in superhero movies ever. But here was like, oh man, woo, stinky flight. But, you know, whatever. Again, it doesn't deter you from enjoying the movie because it's so character rich.
Yeah.
And it invests you so much in the story and in the plight of these characters that takes a back seat. It just, you know, it's like whatever, you know, which, hey, I love that. I love that I can say that. You know, when the movie depends on effects only, then that would be a serious problem. But it doesn't, so there's reason to just be like, all right, that's cool. I can live with that.
Yeah, and I think like the effects on the skin of the sins was surprisingly good.
Yeah,
like that shit looked real. Almost.
They look like prosthetics at times.
It was pretty impressive, which is why it kind of made it weird when you saw, you know, freaking Mark Strong's head go like this, and you're like, oh, that's not how people move.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just those little weird segments of weird effects, but for the most part, they're pretty good in this.
Yeah, it definitely has its own visual flavor, which I think was something that the DCEU was lacking in distinguishing itself with a unique flavor for the characters. Something that they learned probably around Wonder Woman. Hey, these probably should be having their own distinct look before we unify them. So yes, here this works for this character. A much too dark tone would have, you know, been incongruous with the spirit of the movie. So this is appropriately lit in a way that, you know, carries the air of the movie through.
Yeah, and it also knows when something should look cool.
Yeah.
And there's moments where you're like that looks badass and that's lit really coolly.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It's not just like a, you know, some monotone look throughout. It has moments where it's different and, you know, knows what to do.
And for the especially astute or I guess learned comic book fan, there's a lot of nods there. There's a lot of fan service in the movie that will please those particular people. And you know, if there are avid Shazam readers out there, and I fucking bet there aren't, then this is gonna be something that, you know, pleases them. There's a lot there to be.
They're gonna be like Wormius.
Yeah, you know, yeah. At first, when I first there's you know, a visual reference to a villain, Mr. Mind, which is a fucking worm, and in the movie, they first show him in you know, the Wizard's Lair, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool reference, and you know, as it turns out, in the mid-credit sequence, you know, they kind of set something up with him, which was all the more pleasant. Yeah. But you know, but there's ample things like when
the crocodiles, those were from the comics.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of references, visual cues, and stuff that will please fans of the movie. I mean, I'm sorry, of the comics if they're there. I think the most, I guess, exciting and rousing allusion to the comics was, impossible spoilers here, is towards the last third of the movie, where Shazam or Billy Batson, both are the same, learn not only the lesson that they're supposed to be learning this whole fucking movie, but how it applies to them potentially defeating the foe. And he shares his power with his family. And we see the Shazam family. I didn't think they were going to do that in this fucking movie, but there you go. And it was fucking cool, man. Mm-hmm. And even someone that's not familiar with the comics, that would be a cool fucking sequence, man. Again, it tied in so much into the plot line and all that stuff.
There's even like references to the tiger that they have in the comics and shit like
that. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff like that in this that just it's no way could not please a comic fan, because it shows you that they gave a shit about a comic that hardly anybody does.
Yeah.
And they go a long way in pleasing the general audience as well, you know? It's like if they were making the general audience feel like they were familiar with this character, which is exactly what you want for a character that, again, nobody gave a shit about. But anyway, here's a little minor con. Zachary Levi's face is... Man, he's looking old. He's looking like the love child of like Ed Helms, and I don't know. I can't pin who else, but they're it's like I don't know. Like
he definitely. Like I told you my theory about it, and I think that whatever, you know, training he went through to get into shape. Which, by the way, they just put a suit on him, so with the flip, he lost weight definitely, and maybe it's just kind of like his face is kind of sagging a little.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I saw him somewhat recently. He didn't look that old.
And it's kind of crazy because, I mean, we understand why they got Zachary Levi to play Shazam. He's got the comedic chops to do it, and he proves that very well here. In fact, he kind of goes beyond the Call of Duty. It almost had, not to this ludicrous degree, but it had a touch of the Tick feeling to it in terms of its approach towards comics and how silly they can be. And, you know, kind of taking the piss out of certain scenarios that are tropes in comics. It even had the now way overused bus hanging off the bridge sequence, which the Tick itself has lampooned.
The first season it happened.
So, you know, it had touches of that, you know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We're in on the joke. You know, I guess like dissection of comic tropes. And Zachary Levi had a lot to do with delivering those aspects well, which he did. That face, though, that little face. Hey, it's weird because like Shazam is like this idealistic portrayal of something, right? Like the perfect man. And when his family is the Shazam family, they're all like these super ideal, good-looking, you know, muscular people. But there's Zachary Levi with his leathery face. You know, back in the day, like, hear me out on this. Back in the day, not now, obviously, but back in the day, Andrew Divoff,
Yeah, you're just this love for him.
dude,
being
he looked
Shazam.
exactly like Shazam. But anyway,
Most
whatever.
menacing Shazam.
Dude, he would have been awesome. But the point is, Andrew Divoff is old and he's got a pockmarked face nowadays. But he always had the pockmarked face, and he still would have been a great Shazam. The point is, we got Zachary Levi's leathery face, and you know he's good as the character, so it doesn't matter. Here's my complaint: the fucking suit is. It's not that the suit is bad; it's that it's very clearly a muscle suit.
Yeah.
And there's like the neckline. You're like, dude, there's like a space between you and your body. How does this suit become your muscles?
Yeah. Now, I think it's mostly like right here.
Yes,
you know?
very noticeable.
And like he did get really buff for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird. It's not a weird. Just I understand why. You know, he is supposed to be like the perfect dude or whatever. So he would be massive or whatever. But it does. It's not. It's a little weird looking.
I think
it looked way better in the movie than like in stuff I had seen before.
Yeah.
And you just kind of accept it after a while. But yeah, it's kind of like, woo, puffy.
And also, the lighting had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, you're either going to have one or the other here. You know, again, like you say, there's a reason for him to look this way and, you know, why they chose to go that way despite him having become uber muscular.
Yeah.
It's just that lighting has a lot to do with selling things, you know. Case in point, Henry Cavill in the Superman suit. You know, lighting, the color themes of the suit, etc. Whereas, you know, Shazam's like a bright red costume with yellow and white on it. And it's a really brightly lit movie, so the suit doesn't look fantastic. However, thankfully, it does not look fucking terrible, which, you know, yeah, the promotionals made it kind of look terrible. But, yeah, you know, it's a minor thing. But it's, again, doesn't make the movie stumble at all. So, there you go. I also got to give special kudos to this, like, running gag with the Santa Claus.
Damn it.
I just love the idea of a cowardly fucking Santa Claus.
The only thing that would have made it better is he was pushing people into danger as he ran away.
Yes, that would have been fucking amazing. But yeah, man, super cool. Anyway,
the dog gag, that was funny.
Dog gags, yeah. A lot of the gag. In fact, I can't think of a gag that didn't work. They all were pretty amusing, if not downright hilarious, which is good. You know. There are moments in the movie where you question things. Example, the bus sequence. You know, when he accidentally fucks up this bus, and he by default has to go save the people in it, and he stops the bus from falling off a fucking bridge. He's like fucking 6 foot something off the ground. The bus technically would hit at the same speed. Yeah. He stops it though, and nobody gets hurt. Which really, at that point, just let it drop to 6 fucking foot 4 feet to the ground. But whatever. He stops it. Nobody gets hurt. But he stops it by holding onto the cracked windows.
Yeah, which cracked from a guy falling on it.
Yeah, so you're like, come on, guy. Could come up with something better than that. But you know what? Again, minor little things that you notice that, again, the spirit of the movie has a lot to do with you forgiving little stuff like that. You know, and in the end, it's a superhero movie, so really, if you're taking it too serious, short of it being a serious affair,
I do also think that
like if that happened in The Dark Knight, I'd be like, come on, guy, stop. But it didn't happen in The Dark Knight. It happened in Shazam with a worm guy in it.
The worm guy's pretty great. So I do think that there is like something I noticed that there is like a huge difference in how Zachary Levi acts as Shazam. And how the kid acts as a Billy Batson. Like, he's super serious and, like, all sad and shit. And then Zachy is like, you're kind of like, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a strange dissonance. Now, the way I reasoned it out was this. As Shazam, imagine the power trip, first of all. And they adequately do go from him being confused and kind of like, you know, thrown out of whack by him first being Shazam into like, holy shit, I can basically do whatever I want. However, I don't feel that the Billy Batson character, when he's in his kid form, went through the same stages. You know, he was still very deadly. There's points in this movie where you want to kind of punch Billy Batson.
Yeah, he's a butthole. Because
he's a butthole and he's selfish. But, you know, that's part of the learning arc. And he does learn through being Shazam what he should have learned as Billy Batson. It plays the reason it kind of works is because one, the power fantasy angle, which is a big part of superhero movies. Here, it's literally you're put in the seat of the power fantasy. You get to enjoy the discovery of the powers with the character. So it's something that you kind of forgive. Although, yeah, if you sit and think about it, like, why the fuck was he like all like hell yeah as Shazam, but then he goes back to being this deadly serious kid. Well, not deadly serious, but he's got things to sort out in his life. So yeah, I agree with that. But again, doesn't deter you from enjoying the fucking movie. Which there you go. But anyway,
I also liked one last cool thing that I liked about this. They don't kill the villain.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. It's not one of those where it's a one and done, and you're kind of like, really, freaking Red Skull's gone. He sucks, and then he comes later, and you're like, that licks. Here's kind of like he's still around, and that's cool. It wouldn't have made sense if he murdered him, and it does lead to a little kind of setup, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like that they
anything
didn't just
with worms is cool.
Yeah, I like that they didn't just destroy him, and you're like, serious?
Yeah. And again, the thematics with the villain, with the thematics with the whole movie and tying into the villain and Shazam, Billy Batson's growth. To get rid of a villain at that point would have been kind of against the entire spirit of the movie.
Yeah.
So very wise that they didn't do that. And in general, that's kind of got to stop. There's a moment to kill a villain for sure.
Yeah, Zod made sense.
Yes, Zod totally makes sense. You don't want an unstoppable man god traipsing around the fucking planet being a fucking villain. This guy, he's depowered. He was put in a position where, just fucking lock the guy up at this point. He's a wimp. But anyway.
Wormius comes in.
Very good choice there. So anyway, anything you got to add besides what we already touched on?
I think we hit it.
All right, let's give this a score on a scale of 1 to 10 in comparison to its compatriots in crime, i.e. other superhero movies, and give it to me. Final thoughts, if you got any?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was more entertaining than I thought it would be. It was different than what I thought it was going to be, which was cool. Zachary Levi was surprisingly entertaining. I was a little worried about him. He's my boy, so I was kind of like, man, you better not freaking ruin it. Face was a little messed up, but I can live with a face. Also, biceps were woo. Anyway, this is definitely gonna be a buyer for me. I'll give it like an 8 point. No, you know what? I'll give it a 9. I really liked it.
This ended up being far more enjoyable than I expected it to be. And to be fair, I didn't expect it to be enjoyable after fucking Aquaman. But that's not to say that my expectations were low. In fact, I was kind of like, this better fucking be good, or I'm gonna fucking destroy everybody on Earth, because I don't want them fucking up the DCEU. You know what I'm saying? Because in my opinion, it was never fucked up until they decided, hey, it's fucked up now. Let's take Zack Snyder out of the fucking seat. That's when it kind of got fucked up. Then Aquaman came in, just jizzed all over everything. But anyway, whatever. This was like a big moment. Like, dude, you better not fucking break this shit.
Yeah, I do like how they showed respect to the other movies too.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, very much in the DCEU, obviously. Which I don't understand. I saw some people talking about it like, oh, it's no longer how. It's literally in the fucking. They make sure, and that it's still in the DCEU. But whatever. Yeah, man, it surprised me how much I liked it. Again, what it aims for, it achieves. And what it aims for is unique. It's different to what we've seen so far in superhero movies. This is strictly a fucking family-friendly comedy, And to do that and still manage to give you a superhero product that satisfies is a pretty, I gotta say, pretty ambitious achievement. So, yeah, pretty awesome visually. At times it's fantastic. At other times, yes, of course, not great. But overall, the spirit carries everything along. And in the end, that's what matters. Great introduction to a hero. Great layout of the mythology that sets up the groundwork for things to come as well. So, I mean, I can't complain overall. Where does this stand overall? I would have to give it an 8.5. It's pretty fucking fun, man. This is a fun movie. It's a blast. I'm glad DCU wasn't buried in its fucking tracks with this thing, which, you know, could have been. So there you have it, folks. If you haven't seen Shazam yet, check it out. If you didn't like the DCU movies before, this might be your turning point. If you liked them before, this isn't going to change anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless you're that hard up for something else, then maybe,
Yeah.
you know, you'll be anal about it. But this is a good fucking entry, man. This is a good, different, and fun entry into this series of movies. So let us know what you think about it. Hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons, because we're out.